How's it going, everybody? Welcome back again to another episode of Momentum Motorsports Meeting. We are on episode number 47. We are quickly closing in on 50 episodes of this show. We've got some special guests here, and I'll introduce you to them shortly. We've got Alex Skigen, who's currently our team president for Osprey Racing, and Isaac Montes, who is one of our aerodynamic leads for Osprey Racing. So we're going to kind of dive into them, see what their life is all about. We'll also kind of talk a little bit about Michigan at competition this year, since I never really got to kind of really talk about it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get to it. This is Momentum Motorsports Meeting. Alrighty, so we are joined with Alex Skigen and Isaac Montes. How are you guys doing?
Doing good.
Doing great.
It's great to have you on board. I haven't really had the opportunity, to get a guest star on the show, because it had obviously been a little while, because a lot of the motorsports season is kind of still wrapping up. We still got F1. I think the 8 hours of Bahrain in the World Endurance Championship finally just ended. So I just want to kind of tell you guys, like, how you guys doing? How's your weekend been?
Weekend was great. We went down to Daytona kind of as individuals from the team to go watch the HSR season for Daytona's 24-hour kickoff, which was pretty fun for this year. Always fun. A couple of members on the team running cars there that weekend. Zach specifically, the 962, getting to poke around the garages. It's always a blast.
Yeah, for sure. And it's amazing to camp in the infield and waking up to race cars in the morning.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. Tell me a little bit more about that, because that's kind of like an exhibition race, isn't it?
A lot of enthusiasts who remember cars that they grew up, that they were super passionate about, and they're able to get them back out, stretching their legs. Historic cars, a little bit more dynamic than something you may see at like a Concours. It's kind of what America has, or the U.S. has, for stuff like Goodwood, where you'll see historic F1 cars, historic Le Mans racing cars. They really don't get the opportunity to be publicly viewed. In HSR, even though it's a racing league, it's owned by IMSA, and it's something that they want drivers to compete for, as a spectator, it really is awesome to go, and you can see a 962 racing a Viper, and you can see DPI cars from 4 years ago racing again, with all sorts of levels of skill and all sorts of fun cars from different eras. Of 1 hour it's 2018 DPI cars, and the next hour it's 1966 Shelby Cobras, and it's for an entire day straight, and it's awesome, spectacular kind of sport racing.
Yeah, no, for sure. Which one was probably your most favorite car? I think both of you. I don't know if Isaac. I don't know if you were there. I think you were there. You can both kind of chime in and just let me know which car was one of your favorites.
Yeah, I was actually a fan of the 1960s Lola that was there. Actually, when we were in the pits, I was able to snag a trashed gear that came off of it. So that's going to be hanging up in my room soon.
That is so awesome. Skigen, what about you?
Probably I can't remember which is the Acura DPI car. I can't remember what year it was specifically, but it was the Sirius XM livery, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And that car, I remember Castro Neves winning in it, or a liveried car like that, in the actual 24 hours, I think in 22 or 23 when I went, and seeing it go back around again was just awesome. Seeing it on track again at night doing its thing was great.
Yeah, for sure. So were you guys basically setting up like a tent area or something?
We had all weekend long infield camping, which was great. So Saturday night into Sunday morning, we all slept there. Some people brought tents, some people slept in their car, but it's pretty free reign as long as you're not like in an RV spot. They don't really care. So you can kind of go wherever, which is always awesome. There was a big fog lift for visibility throughout the race weekend. So at like 3 a.m. to about 7 a.m. before the sun came up, they had to halt all the racing. So everybody got an opportunity to get some actual quality sleep as much as you could.
Yeah. You know, we kind of had you on here to talk a little bit about Osprey Racing. Alex Skigen, you are now the president of Osprey Racing. Last year we had Tip Ralston, who was our team president last year. Kind of tell me, what is it like kind of filling in those shoes? Is it anything different than what you've been doing, last year or so?
I'm still ergo and brakes lead, but president's mostly responsibilities for club activities on campus. So coordinating events with the school of engineering, CCEC here at UNF, coordinating with our sponsors for events, highlighting us out in the world off campus is kind of a new world responsibility-wise outside of the engineering actual project side of the team, working on just kind of outreach generally, reaching new people, coordinating with the media team. It's a lot of new kind of administrative functioning stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely a new challenge for you, kind of just adding on to what you've already been doing. Isaac, you are currently one of the aerodynamic leads. Just kind of explain your role a little bit.
Yeah, so I was basically coming in this year to fill in Max's shoes after we split up the aerodynamics and the composites lead. So now Gavin Godwin is the new composites lead. So we're able to kind of work together, but work separately to create different things instead of it all being on one person. On the aero side of things, I've definitely realized that in order to reach the fun parts, like designing a front wing or designing a rear wing, or actually like getting simulation results, there's a lot, 80% of it is all just hard work, like just all the boring stuff in order to figure out like how it all comes together. Something that I didn't necessarily realize at first, but something I'm navigating now. But I've come to really appreciate it, and I've definitely appreciate Max's work that he's put into everything. And my goals are purely to innovate upon it.
Yeah, no, for sure. Shout out to Max Freitag, man, one of the aero leads. I mean, I cannot believe the work that he did last year. Huge shout out to him.
For sure.
Yeah, like this year has been starting out pretty crazy. Kind of just tell me like how difficult, like what are some of the difficulties that you've had and that you've had as your respectable lead. Skigen, you can also chime in on this as well, but just kind of tell me like what are the main difficulties that you want to kind of point out?
Lots of unforeseen problems. Like you kind of you shouldn't expect everything to go as perfectly as it should, but I expected a little bit more to go right. I had a lot of problems with our frame. In order to actually develop an aero model for our car, we have to first wait on the frame. If the frame is not finished or if it gets modified, everything restarts. So this year, an unforeseen circumstance was that we had to make the body 3 different times. If we only had to make it 1 time back in September, then I feel like we'd be a lot more ahead of things, but that's totally fine because we have somebody on the team who's excellent at surfacing now. So he was able to crack out a body for the 3rd time in October, and we've really put full steam ahead on everything beyond that.
Yeah, Skigen, do you want to? Yeah.
This year's just kind of always the same stuff, but a lot of engineering side innovation problems that we've had. So when we go through tech at competition, one of the things that we have to have is a firewall that separates the driver from the fuel cell in the car. And previously our solution for it was kind of a temporary addition that would get riveted and aluminum taped over the edge over the gas tank, but it would make servicing quite difficult. But this year we decided to wholesale start the year off trying to target that exact issue for ergo for competition. I had Luke, one of our new members, help out a lot with generating a brand new seat that will be ground up this year, made in-house again, and it will be our secondary firewall as a single unit, which will make it a much more permanent solution. And that's had a lot of growing pains in that it's a complex part to CAD, really complex part to then make a mold out of, and scheduling a layup for it, figuring out how we want to make it out of carbon fiber, but working towards just big fixes like that because it's just a huge time suck at comp getting that secondary firewall legal. It can suck up 20 minutes. It can suck up 3 hours getting it ready. And they can still, when you get through the line, the judges go, I don't like this. It needs to be even better. It needs to be even stronger. How are you going to reinforce it? And just starting from the year with that as a target has been just an innovation with a lot of hard work and missteps as we go along.
Yeah, we'll come back to competition in a little bit. I want to completely dive into that.
Yeah.
But I kind of want to go back to the past of when you first started to join Osprey Racing. Kind of tell me what that was like.
I had heard about the team when I was about 18 and had been on the team intermittently before I had started attending UNF. Just helping out and being interested. And when I eventually got in, it was kind of the quintessential, very stereotypical what we tell people to do, which is hand you a part, model it in CAD, or go to SolidWorks, learn the CAD SolidWorks tutorial. And then it was kind of just sit around. When manufacturing starts, we'll walk you through the process. But it was just the spirit of the team at that time, the amount of amazing work that Vaughn was doing, the manufacturing that was going on with powertrain. At that time, we were redoing a large amount of our fuel system, so some complex CNC machining, a lot of other things. It was all happening at once. We had stock, we had the supplies, and there were a lot of experienced members on the team that were getting after it, and it was just immediately intoxicating.
Do you remember what year you had joined by any chance?
That would have been 22 that year.
Okay.
So that would have been D11 was the year I remember not going to comp, but seeing the car get put together. And then D12 year was the year I was all the way through kind of as a ergo subsystem lead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Isaac, we've kind of seen when Alex first started to join the team. I'm very, very curious on when your first year was.
Yeah. May seem a little confusing since I'm a lead now, but I only joined the team back in January of this year. So I haven't even been on the team for a full year yet. Basically, my experience was kind of similar with the whole pester the leads. That was my biggest goal. So at first I came in back in January and I was really interested in powertrain. That's kind of a common theme. We see a lot of people that are always interested in the big complicated system and they want to get their hands on it. But then after about 2 months of just being there, like you just go, even if I didn't have a project, I still went. Although I got put on one pretty early, and that was the fuel tank. Designed that, and then eventually that kind of showed the other leads what kind of skills I had, especially with CAD. Eventually, Max Freitag kind of took me under his wing because he realized that I would probably be pretty good with anything CAD, and then eventually CFD related, which is what we do a lot of with aero simulations. And then I just kind of kept going, did a lot more work. And then I guess I landed a pretty early spot on our comp list, and then that proved to our captain, Owen Schell, to induct me as the lead for the next year.
Yeah, I kind of want to go. It's amazing that you joined the team. Very, very early into the year, and you basically just kind of fit right in. It was just like a very, very nice addition, and it's amazing how far along you've come so far.
Thank you.
I do want to kind of talk about you guys got the new rules to start off this semester. I kind of want to, I'm kind of wondering, I was like, how'd you get those rules? Was it like a voting process? Because obviously, with the captain and the president of last year, obviously graduating and doing much, greater things that they enjoy, I'm definitely kind of interested in, knowing how you got those roles.
Mm-hmm. I had worked a little bit with Tip, our previous president, on a lot of the school relations stuff. So working with the CCEC, working with student government and a couple of other organizations that sponsor us. And I had kind of been eyeing the position as someone who felt like I could kind of maximize it and understood the project the best. So I had kind of been thinking about it, and then after competition, obviously there's a big kind of emotional reset after comp. It's over, you did well, you feel happy, you're excited to go back again. And shortly after comp, we host a internal election that is hosted anonymously, and everybody gets to vote on who wants each position. Everybody just shortly after contacts the president and says, hey, I would like to officially run for this position, and then you go and run for it, and it'll be my responsibility after competition to host that election the way it was for Tip. So it was just always something that I thought that would probably be best for the team while everyone else can do what they do great.
Yeah, no, for absolutely, for sure. Just kind of want to get into, what year you guys are in currently of UNF, and really curious on what you want to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. So I'm currently a junior in mechanical engineering. At first, I didn't really know what portion of mechanical engineering I wanted to go into. I was always interested in race cars, and that was a big thing about coming here to UNF. If Osprey Racing was not here, there's a very good chance that I would not have come to this school. But the actual part of the race car, I didn't know what I was interested in until I started learning about aerodynamics when it came to the car itself. I got a really good hands-on learning experience with it, and now it's become a huge part of my life. So now I've got this whole plan laid out where in my up until my late 20s, I want to join a racing team. Ideally, it would be in aerodynamics. At some point, maybe even after I get my bachelor's here at UNF, I want to go overseas to Europe and get my master's in aerodynamics and computational flow. There's a lot of European colleges that offer that. Not much in the United States, and they translate really, really well to teams like an F1, IMSA, or WEC. So I really want to go for something like that. And then after that, I'm not sure what I want to do after I join a racing team. If I end up getting something like a good living situation and it pays well and I'm actually happy with where I'm working, then I would consider staying there. However, if those aren't satisfied, I would probably move on to something in my early 30s to a more stable engineering firm or start my own.
Yeah, that's really, really cool how you kind of brought up going to Europe and just kind of, potentially working for, a bunch of teams that, really really kind of work well in what you're doing right now. Very, very cool. Very super cool. Skigen, what about you?
I've done a little bit of work with some race teams, HSR a couple times, some Trans Am work, and I know that for me, being a advanced manufacturing major, it's not exactly where where I'd want to be professionally, but probably in the medical space. I'm an intern now at Johnson & Johnson here on campus doing research. It's just a lot of fun. Started that recently this semester, so very busy, and it's kind of been everything that I wanted that space to be, and I've enjoyed it a lot. So pursuing that as time goes on with it in regards to manufacturing engineering, it's kind of where my heart would be, making something for 3D printing bone, 3D printing skin grafts, working with doctors, coming up with surgery guides for patients specifically to their own bone structure, stuff like that is where I eventually want to go. And motorsports will always be something I'm passionate about, but as a job, maybe separating work and play.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Always.
Absolutely,
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I want to now talk about competition this year.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go through day by day. I want to get the full experience because I was chosen. I was chosen to go, and I my initial reaction, I was like, "Dang, okay." I didn't see this coming. I'm walking back to my dorm, just looking at my phone, and I see a DM on Discord saying that, hey, what's your N number and email address, and I'm like, uh-oh, what's this? You know what I mean? And so I give him my information, and then I ask, am I going to competition? And he said, yeah. And this person is Max Hoffman. He was our treasurer lead last year. And I was kind of like, oh my gosh. Unbelievable. I truly did not think that I would get to be chosen. Unbelievable. Very glad I got chosen, and I hope to go. I definitely hope to go again because this year was just an unbelievable experience. But I want to go. I want to go ahead and switch to when to the day that we started to leave. It
Yep.
was around in the evening.
Yep.
I remember we were finally getting the car, like we had finally finished the car after a year's work of just unstoppable grind. We had actually gotten a race car. So kind of just go through, the evening to when we left.
So we usually leave Monday night to get to Brooklyn in Michigan sometime middle of the day on Tuesday. It's usually about an 18-hour drive. We like to avoid traffic through the mountains, so we're usually getting in for load in at the track somewhere around 1 p.m. So we usually get to the shop sometime early Monday morning and start the final prep. This year at Comp was pretty good for us. We had gotten the car mechanically fully ready to go. So that's side body panels, that's the seat, that's all of the suspension, motor, everything dialed, buttoned in about a week before competition, which allowed us to get a lot of good testing in and really shake the car down, do a little bit of setup changes for stuff like skid pad, experiment a little bit with stuff like Excel, and definitely kind of put the car through just a little bit of work through it with a lot of new parts that year, a lot of brand new systems. We just wanted to get it through its paces as much as possible. And with Nathan, our captain, last year, we were really ahead of schedule, getting the frame in earlier than the year before, getting all of our parts in and manufactured a little bit earlier, buttoning the car up so we could get that testing time in. So Monday morning, it was a lot of going through our packing lists that we prep previous years and for that year specifically. If there's some changes, if we added a 14 mil bolt, we need to make sure that we also have 14 mil head on a socket. Make sure we have everything that we may need for servicing something. If there's a new part on the car for adjusting our differential mount, we need to make sure we bring that. Starting the packing, putting the car back together after a little bit of tear down and check after the shakedowns, and then a lot of final fit and finish stuff for composites, which is always a huge workload. And last year, specifically, you worked a lot with them, which was amazing, and we had a lot of changes. It was our first second generation aero package. We had been running the same fundamental design for a number of years. We added an under tray, we revised our front and rear wing, the mounting, all of it, so it was all brand new. We had to relearn how to make all of those parts as we'd kind of gotten used to dealing with one mold and how that one releases, how that one has to get laid up on, the process of post-processing that part. Just getting everything put together for that aero package was a learning curve. So just little things here and there, getting it buttoned up, glued together, looking nicer than it can, and just putting everything in together slowly but surely. And then everyone starts trickling in for the day. Shop slowly starts filling up. Zach's mom, Mrs. Lister, came by with food for everybody, which was great. We all got to eat, which is not common because a lot of the time we kind of forget to eat anything on the day leading up. But we just slowly started packing our trailer, slowly started packing the vans and the truck with everyone's personal items. Everyone made sure they got their polos and their merch. People working on design binders like Vaughn, whose system with the suspension was pretty dialed in, and he just started slowly working on his design presentation, working on getting together all of the spare parts that he may want, just little things like that. Every single system just going through and doing their due diligence in the shop for about 15 hours.
Yeah, I definitely do want to point out that the shirts that were given to us were made very, very nice. They were it's something that I'm just always a big fan of, and I cannot wait to see what they look like for next year as well. I kind of want to dive into just the travel just a little bit. Just kind of how was that? I don't know if you and Isaac traveled together. I don't believe you did, because
did not.
I think we have one person from each vehicle. So we had two vans last year. We had the unfortunate van and the lucky van. Unfortunately,
that I was in.
Yeah, unfortunately, one of our
Holy
vans,
smokes!
We left UNF, which is about midway through Jacksonville, and then about 2/3 of the way up Jacksonville, the AC conked out on the big minivan, which means that you guys had about an 18-hour drive ahead of you, packed to the gills, full, with no air conditioning.
It was packed in there. Oh my goodness gracious! I was absolutely sweating. I was I was so sweating. I was like, this is miserable. There was at one point where I was like, where I was getting close to being like nauseous, and I was like, That is the unlucky van. What a way to start the first year of comp, man.
Trial by fire for sure.
Yeah, trial by fire. Fortunately, it went better for, Isaac and you.
This is true.
The travel itself, it actually wasn't too bad. Just a lot of
it's always worse in your head than it is in reality. It's kind of you blink and you're there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely becomes a blur.
It's there's so many people in every vehicle. I was in the truck last year, being one of the people who has some experience in trailering things. It's good to have anybody and everybody in the truck have some experience, at least going forward with a vehicle in a big trailer. So I had done a small stint, maybe 6 hours on the way north, and then you're kind of just sleeping a little bit, sitting on your phone, not doing too much, trying not to get car sick. But there's really not too much going on, and it really is just kind of you blink and you're there. And we leave so late at night, you're sleepy anyways.
Yeah. Like for me, I was only, I don't even know how many hours of sleep I got. I think I got like probably 4 out of the entire day. And it definitely sucked for me because I was in the unlucky van where we were literally like an hour into the drive, and then all of a sudden we're having to like pull over at like a Love's gas station, searching for like basically AC coolant whatnot to try to get it cool. And to be fair, it did cool down so much for about maybe like 10-15 minutes, and then it just completely went back to just miserable. So the 15 minutes of fame and glory and relaxation for every time we stopped was definitely great.
And then it gets cooler when you get north, so it's not the worst. Leaving it's always the hottest and the humidest and the worst when you set off, so it's only getting better. And then the sun comes up.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then, at that point when, we finally get to the hotel, everyone is basically at different points in the trip because, even though we all leave together, we're basically just like, it's like no man's land. Like, I think we try to stay together for the most part, but obviously, some situations are different.
It's very much, we always designate someone who's like in charge of a van. So we've got like, we've got Max's van, we've got Nathan's van, and we've got the truck. And it's kind of just like, there's the head honcho who will maybe make his own group chat with everyone in there, or maybe just make sure that he's going to text everyone kind of the plan, but it's real free form, and it's down to the vans. And really we kind of corral everyone when we wake up in the morning to go to the track and when we leave, and we just, do a head count, but it's kind of a free for all for the vans themselves.
Yeah, no, for sure. So we get there, we take the rest of the day to kind of relax because I think it was like 5 p.m.
4 or 5 p.m. by the time we had gone in for early load in, so we were able to load in on Tuesday. The event doesn't officially start till Wednesday, so we'd gotten our trailer in early, got a good spot, went through the trailer, made sure everything looked good after transport, nothing got knocked over, nothing broke in transport, and then just buttoned it up right next to Embry Riddle, and then head back to the hotel from the track. And then just everyone had been up for a good period of time, maybe some bad sleep in the car, so it's get to bed early, we got to wake up early anyways, let's start, let's not rock and roll through this with a terrible sleep schedule, try to get to bed by like 10 o'clock at least.
Yeah, for sure. And that's when we kind of translate into day one. Day one was basically just tech inspection. Isaac, you can also kind of comment on this too, because I feel like I've been excluding you. Kind of just tell me, what was it like just looking at the track, for the first time, seeing the surrounding area, because the surrounding area actually, at least to me, it looked pretty cool. Like especially considering to Daytona that I've been to, like it was definitely a different area for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that the scariest part of competition for me was what I saw the most and what I remember the most was tech inspection. I think that's kind of every team's worst nightmare, is when they have a fully fitted car, they think the whole thing is ready to go. They get into the line, they go through the 45-minute process of getting it actually checked out, and then they're in the garage. The entire team is corralled around while the tech judges are asking questions about your car, and then the sudden fear of, like, this might not pass tech, then you get taken out. This year, we did unfortunately not pass tech the first time. So we did go through that whole process where a judge was basically said, hey, sorry, this cannot pass.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't an issue that we could just fix in the garage. So we had to take the car out, take it back to the pits. We immediately did all the fixes. And then basically the next day we took it back in the morning. But that delayed us by a good bit. We're hoping to not have that issue this year. And we're going to definitely button down. The main issue was with our floor and aero components. We were told that our aero components were too sharp and they didn't have enough of a rounded edge. So we fixed those at the paddock. And
Did we have to cut some of like the front, like parts of the front wing off or anything to like?
No.
The front wing was trimmed slightly.
Okay.
So we were pushing the bounding box ever so slightly on the end plates. But that usually happens from year to year because just ever so slight imperfections. We build our aero package to the bounding box, and it's kind of understood that we will do just like maybe a hair of trimming, but we were told to cut about 2/100ths of an inch, so 20,000ths of an inch off of the edge of these wings. So, barely the width of 4 hairs or something.
Yeah, so not too bad.
Not bad.
No, it was very simple. And the other thing was that like we ended up adding on a little bit to the end plates because of the extra padding that we had to add for the rounded edges. But the trimming fixed that up, and they were totally fine with it the next time around.
Yeah, so that was basically
That was all a Wednesday.
That was basically day 1.
Yep.
We go down to day 2. We retake tech inspection.
Yep.
We pass.
Pass first
And
time.
then I believe, if I remember correctly, it was the tilt test and the sound test as well,
Yep.
along with the brake test as well.
So we did I'm trying to remember. We did tilt test next. Tilt test after you pass technical inspection at comp is basically you go to get fuel in your car for the first time. They require that there's no gas in your engine or in your tank at all when you show up to the track, and you go to fill it. So
that there's like no leaks in the
no
gas,
leaks, nothing.
gas
So
tank too.
You get pulled in to a bay. Every other team's waiting in line. There's about 2 judges standing around your car. One starts filling up your car. You mark a line on a transparent tube. They say, stop it when you fill it up here. They fill it. They leave you there for about 2 minutes. They walk around the car, make sure there's not any big leaks, nothing visible. They don't smell any gas. Okay, you're good. And then you go over to the tilt table. The tilt table is basically just this big hydraulic assembly they strap the car down to. And they literally just tilt your car to about 60 degrees, 40 degrees, somewhere in that range. And it's just kind of a rough assessment to see if when you're pulling the G's laterally that you will pull while the car is driving in a dynamic setting, is it going to leak any of these fluids that you don't want, whether it's oil or water for your coolant. They don't let you run coolant, so it's not a huge issue if it's water, but it's still something that's leaking. And then gas, that's the big one. We ended up failing tilt, not because of our issues with...
I think our fuel tank was okay, if I remember correctly.
Nothing with fuel. We had actually we tilted out of the machine, so they kind of let you sit flat in it. And it's kind of a measurement of CG. What we ended up happening is that our tires were pumped to the max for transport to make it really, really easy to roll. And we had taken the car down on Monday and not done an alignment or a setup on it. So our steering and all of our toe and camber and everything was all out of whack. It was all just put in, but we were planning on doing a setup, reset, go through, string the car, put it back on the scales, do a corner balance, everything once we passed sound for brakes. So the car was really out of whack with super pumped up tires, so it dropped off. We got out of line, dropped the tires back down to regular spec, did a quick string alignment, not super precise, but just a little better, ran back through, had no issues whatsoever. And that was about 30 minutes of a just like, okay, let's just quick reset. Vaughn and Jackson tackled that, send it back through, no issues.
Yeah, so kind of while that happened, a good amount of us were kind of watching from, like there was like a little barrier. Only a few members were, kind of allowed to kind of quickly make fixes that, the judges didn't like. Yeah. And then there was also, I believe there was also another group that was working on presentations.
Yes.
I believe it was design. I think design presentations were also on the same day too, if I believe.
Design presentations,
if not today, if not,
should have been on Friday.
If it wasn't day 2, then it might have been like maybe even day 3.
Throughout the whole week, day 2 and day 3 and day 1, everyone who was doing a design presentation, so myself, Freitag, our old aero lead, Vaughn, our old suspension lead, Zach, our powertrain lead from last year and this year, Nathan, our captain, Owen, who decided to take on the electrical data acquisition presentation. All of us were working on reviewing our previous documentation, generating new ones, putting down all the figures and images that we want. One of the big events at Comp is design, where we sit down with judges and talk about our specific subsystems, highlight what we did, why we did it, the manufacturing methods we use, kind of best practices for engineering, and really highlight what we do specifically that makes us search for that extra tenth, that extra half a second on an endurance lap, and kind of get the judges to understand why we did everything that we did.
And that was day 3?
I believe so.
Okay. Yeah. If not day 3, it might have also been day 2. I want to quickly go back to day 2 a little bit before we talk about before we kind of go back to presentations. I want to talk about the sound test.
Yeah.
That's basically where the car has to reach a certain limit of decibels. I believe I think you mentioned it to me like a few months ago, like before competition, that it got lowered from like 115 to like 110, and we go down there, we're doing the sound test, and we somehow don't pass it. Now the thing that kind of really got me confused was because we mainly did like a test, we did like a rundown of everything that the judges would find that we thought would be okay, and we did like our own like practice test of the sound test, and it would get up, it would go high, it would be louder than 110, but then after like 5 or so seconds, it would go back down.
Cool back down.
Yeah, what was up with that?
We had experimented with a lot of in-house exhaust manufacturing this year. We went to a fully in-house design and manufactured titanium muffler that featured a lot of amazing work from Kai and our advisor, Dr. N. And the exhaust in our instrumented testing before competition was legal. We have our own decibel meter, comparable or identical to the one they use at competition. And what we found is that we passed idle extremely well. It wasn't too difficult. We can do that with most of the exhausts that we run throughout the years. The issue was you have to go to a certain percentage of your rev limit and pass the 110 decibel limit or 111 decibel limit. I can't remember which one it is.
Yeah.
And when we did instrumented testing, we were getting it where we'd rev it up to the limit that we wanted it to be, and the revs would build, hold it. The decibels would be at like 116, 118, not legal, but slowly kind of the physical resonance in the exhaust, which was generating noise and not the actual pulses from the combustion, but rather the rattling of the exhaust, would kind of reach an equilibrium and would stop rattling.
Right.
And it would quiet back down. When we got to sound, we had Mason in the car. Mason's really, really experienced with driving the car, being comfortable. He was fine. And it was just the tech judge that we had was not having it with us, holding it at the limit for as long as we needed it to, for it to cool back down and get back to temp, or get back down to kind of the frequency that would pass sound. And it was just kind of the tinging, the vibration that would coming off the exhaust. There was just so little that we could do with the fact that they would not allow us to hold it at the higher RPM limit for the time that it needed to kind of stop shaking. So we ended up adding some additions to the exhaust, trying to stop the rattle, trying to go through and figure out what packing solutions we could use to maybe make it a little quieter. And obviously we bring the decibel meter ourselves to competition so we can address things at the paddock, at our pit stall, seeing if we can make it happen. And we just kept running into issue after issue. And a couple of things that we dialed down to manufacturing and how we made it. It was just a lot of fit and finish issues. Titanium is very difficult to weld. A lot of issues with the overall size of it, and the fact that we had to get all these very expensive materials making out of titanium. We didn't have the opportunity to manufacture 2 of these. It's quite expensive.
Yeah.
So for us,
sure,
it was just, if we could remake it from the beginning, it would have been fine. But our good friends at Embry-Riddle, being as prepared as they are, brought a secondary muffler that is run on regular road bikes that they know passes tech, but is quite hefty.
Yeah.
And they were willing to lend it to us for us to kind of supplement onto our exhaust.
Shout out to Embry-Riddle for
Yes.
letting us
Yeah,
borrow
that
that.
was huge.
That was very nice for them. They even provided our impact attenuator, which is a safety item from last year, out of the goodness of their heart. We had a ordering miscommunication with that, and we just didn't end up getting one in time, which would have been interesting at competition.
Yeah, shout out to them, because I feel
Yeah.
like without them we would not be placed where we had placed. And
We would've-
Embry-Riddle did very, very good.
Embry-Riddle did
overall.
amazing.
Mhm.
First place in acceleration was awesome for them, bringing back hardware and winning, especially against all the amazing European teams and the teams in the U.S. specifically that target that kind of event. It was very killer to see them represent Florida super, super well, specifically in that event, which was awesome. But they're a huge help answering questions, helping out with parts, specific stuff that just get slept through or, slip through the cracks. But the exhaust that they provided, we were able to fit, get working, mount properly, make sure it's tech compliant, and run it through sound again, passed first try. No
Yeah.
issues, no fibbing anything, no crazy need for all sorts of wacky stuff to make.
And that's into day 3, correct?
That was day.
Because day 2, I feel like day
late,
2.
That was late on day 2.
Oh, late on. Okay,
Yeah,
late on day
that was late
2,
day 2.
and then we still had a couple more.
We had breaks.
We had breaks
We
in the
tried to
morning on
modify the muffler quite a few times, and so we tried to go through sound like a couple times because of that.
right.
It wasn't until like later that day that we were like, all right, screw it, we'll just go with this option instead. And
Yeah.
it felt like the nuclear pick, but it ended
Right.
up working out very, very well.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that was late in day 2. We now go over to day 3, where we still had the brakes test, flying colors, honestly, all
Yep.
around.
First try.
Yep,
Yeah,
Mason-
first try.
Mason is really good at this. Lots of road bike experience, lots of high performance driving experience generally. There's a lot of things you can do to make brakes easier on you. It's kind of a difficult event because the way we set up the car and the way someone should set it up for performance driving, if you just smash the brakes, you should lock the fronts before you lock the rears, and getting all 4 wheels to lock can be a little difficult. But we adjust the brake bias portionally, we do a little bit of suspension changes, and he's super experienced on getting a small soft launch out of that thing and then just locking them all up first try. It was great. Got him the lollipop that everyone wants going through
Yeah.
brakes tech, and then we were out of there straight to autocross.
Yeah, so we kind of it was a pretty. I was kind of surprised of how far the events were. Like, there was acceleration, which was over near pit road,
Yep.
and then skid pad and autocross were located on the backstretch,
Yep.
right near into turn 3, I believe.
Yep.
So we go over. We finish the brakes test with very, very quickly, within like a blink of an eye. Yeah.
Easy. There
Blink
was,
of an eye.
A car in front of us in line.
Mhm.
They failed. They sent us through first while they were waiting to go behind us. No issues. Straight
Yeah.
through, right over to autocross. So that was immediately after. So
And then we go over to autocross. There was basically you could basically watch the cars from behind the fence, and then there was also like a little barrier on the other end of the autocross course that you could go to. I went over to I went over. I believe you, Isaac, you were there, like on one of the other far ends of the.
For autocross, I had on a dynamic pass, so I was actually there helping prep the car.
Oh, okay, okay. So
I
you
think,
were.
Ian was one of the people that went all the way
Oh,
to the
okay.
end.
Yeah, Ian
with-
and I were
Yeah.
definitely there. And I believe Kai was there. I think Kai might have been there as well. We go down for autocross. Kind of tell me how that went.
Autocross for an event is always kind of a cat and mouse game. The track, specifically where we run autocross, is the curtain for NASCAR and kind of the runoff area. So it's dusty. It's not rubbered in. It can be dirty. So a lot of teams are kind of just sitting there waiting to see who goes first. And for us, we know that there's not a lot of ROI on that for us setup-wise. Our drivers, we know, really, really experienced as far as skid pad or as far as like autocross driving goes. we weren't too worried about the benefit that we would get from a rubbered in cleaner track. So we were
Right.
one of the first cars that went out for autocross to run.
Mhm.
And that's kind of where we had run into the big theme issue for that day of the kind of first 3 dynamic events, which was that the drivers were immediately complaining about a lot of lack of power. And it was just like the car felt like it had this big turbo on it, and we had a huge turbo lag and just took forever to get going. So we had Owen, our current captain and our PR lead at the time, go through and drive autocross. He did his first session. He was just like, it feels sluggish. It's just kind of difficult to get on power. He went through it. It was good for him to get, first couple of laps in experience-wise for it. Both of his laps were fairly solid with some big penalties. There was a specific section that was kind of a right and then a right and then a right.
Mm-hmm.
And then
I think you went. Did you go over a cone? And then there was another
he
instance.
missed a slalom.
Mhm.
So it was a right and a right and a right. And then there's one pointer cone that was kind of behind another cone that wants to push you back left for a slalom that you enter on the left while you're turning right for a cone.
Mhm.
It's kind of a difficult one to get a handle on.
Right.
And he missed it the first time and missed it the second time. So when you miss a section like that, they're going to give you a huge time penalty.
How big is the
relative.
penalty?
He probably had 10 seconds added.
10
on
seconds? Okay.
To what is usually, I think, like a minute and 15-second run. So big performance loss. The time that you would have spent going through that slalom, maybe 4 seconds added on to the raw pace of, besides just like blasting past it. So the 10-second penalty definitely drew us back time-wise. And then our captain at the time, Nathan, got in, went and did his 2 runs, which I believe produced the fastest ones because he had none of the penalties.
Mhm.
But both very, very on it. Ran through, no issues. Tires got scrubbed in. We were running brand new tires for that, so stickers, no issues. And it was just, the car felt really lethargic, not a lot of power, and we chalked it up to us having this new exhaust that had a lot of packing material in it. It had we had an intake modification that had to happen in tech for compliance, and we had a kind of a theory that maybe this changed the way the tune's operating, and it was just kind of difficult to get the power.
And
out
we
of
were
it.
also using a different muffler, I believe, too, at the time.
Yeah. So it was just a fairly solid run. The car felt great to drive dynamically, but then powertrain was just, it felt really crummy, and we didn't really know if there was anything that we could do about it for the most part. It was kind of just like, that's the way it's going to be.
Right.
And then because autocross and skid pad are kind of right next to each other, we brought the car back out of our autocross and started setting up.
And we like immediately,
skid pad.
Yeah, we immediately kind of set up for skid pad. I thought it felt like, to me, skid pad felt better than autocross for a reason. Isaac, I believe you were there watching us, or just like watching the car go through skid pad. And maybe you can kind of chime in on, which part, was better, whether it was skid pad or autocross.
Like as in like how we performed?
Yeah, like how you thought that we performed at the time, because we didn't know the results until after a couple of days.
Yeah, I mean, I think they were actually somewhat comparable. I feel like we did like as best as we could in autocross, not regarding the penalty.
Right.
Skid pad is normally a very stable event. It's as simple as get up to the right speed and then keeping the same radius turn. I think that we did fairly well. There are always improvements. We could have had the rev limiter working properly.
The rev limiter was working properly.
Okay.
I was the first driver through for skid pad this year. The rev limiter is a solution that we use where when we go through skid pad, our vehicle dynamics lead at the time, Vaughn, and our previous powertrain lead, who was captain at the time, Nathan, were able to sit down and do the calculations with our gear ratios and with our tires using Optimum Kinematics and a couple of other softwares that we have to calculate the exact RPM that we need to hold the car at for us to complete our target goal time.
Right.
And that essentially allows us to just retard ignition and fueling and adjust them as a soft limiter where the driver is able to just fully mat the throttle and get it up through there. For skid pad, it was a bit finicky this year because as we were going through it, we still had the issue from autocross where the powertrain was very lethargic and was not doing a very linear power delivery. It felt very turbocharged forced induction, took a long time to build power.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a issue in the setup with the change that we made specifically for skid pad. We run a exact skid pad suspension and steering setup
Mm-hmm.
that adjusts for our exact liking, which produced our fastest times in internal testing, where we were able to average without aero a 5.1 left and right, which would have been a top 10 time at competition.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, our car had a suspension misalignment issue that we diagnosed after the fact, where when we were turning right, the car was very, very, very easy to oversteer. So it was incredibly difficult to get the car right on its nose and really hold it
And like in
the
a
right
rhythm.
handers and
Right.
get it in a rhythm. It was very difficult, especially with the throttle being very hard for power delivery. I was
Mhm.
able to do a 5.5, I believe, to the left with the throttle issue, which would have been a very competitive time, but I was only able to do about a 6.4 to the right
Right.
on my run. And then Mason, our chassis lead from last year, who had run skid pad and done our fastest time in testing, went through, and he was able to do about a high 5 to the right, so about a 5.8. And then he was able to do at comp a 5.1 to the left. One of the fastest to the left times of anybody at competition that year.
Wow.
It's just we had a very, very small issue with the setup that made it very, very difficult and oversteery to the right. So as far as points go, there was a lot of meat left on the table for
Yeah.
skid pad. And for autocross, it was a lot of just power delivery. The car was really lethargic, and that haunted us all the way into Excel.
Yeah. So we finish skid pad and
Yep.
autocross. I believe we go into acceleration.
Yeah.
I think it took us a little while.
We went to the paddock
Mhm.
because we had a good enough break to go get lunch, and we have the opportunity to do what some people do with Excel or with autocross, where we say let's let people rubber it in. Everybody launches from one of two spots at autocross or for Excel. So for Excel, the rubber it in for us is actually there for us time-wise to justify waiting a long time. We went back to our pit box and tried diagnosing the powertrain, went through it, opened Motec, couldn't find an issue, went through, looked at our spark plugs, looked at everything that we could that would be quick and relatively easy without taking the whole car apart. And we were just struggling to find what our issue was. We couldn't quite figure out what exactly we wanted to address to find whatever issue we thought we had. We had changed a couple of things, O2 sensor out with another replacement part from Embry-Riddle. And we thought that might have been it. We weren't able to replicate the issue in the pits, just kind of at a standstill revving it. It felt happy and fine, so we didn't quite know what it was. And we went through, did the suspension change for our Excel run, where we run a little bit of positive camber, make sure the front wheels have a lot of negative camber so there's way less rolling resistance, dialed that in, got everybody their gear and ready to go, and pushed over to the pits, NASCAR pits for Excel, which went about as well as it was going to do. Excel is an event that is purely down to how much grip do your rear tires have and how
fast you can go within a certain amount of time.
How much power your motor makes.
Yeah.
It's a drag race, straight up.
Yeah.
And for us, with our setup in the rear, we have a lot of grip. We were running relatively fresh tires that were scrubbed in great, kind of at their peak performance, and it would just bog every single time. Full 8,000 RPM clutch dump with launch control and auto shifting, everything ready to go for the drivers to kind of just let loose, and we just always had a big lethargic, like just snail crawl all the way up to the red line in first and second. That was just a huge time suck. And that time that we use to wait for the track to get rubbered in means that after I think Tip did his runs first, and then Mason was going to get in again to run Excel, there was just so little time for us that we didn't have the opportunity to sit down and go back through the motor, go back through the system for it as a whole, and try to see if there's anything that we can find. So it wasn't an O2 sensor, it wasn't a tune issue, and we were just dealing with it still. And we better to put a time in and see if we can better it than before. Mason went out, I believe he set a faster time ever so slightly, and it was kind of as a day on Friday before Saturday. A little frustrating, where it's just 3 dynamic events where there was so much performance for that car left out on the table that was very, very difficult to kind of drag the points back out of.
Yeah, so since we are running a little bit short, we are a little bit short on time. We'll kind of go over endurance, which was the last day. Pays the biggest bucks essentially. We go through. We are one of the first teams to go. And we were one of the earlier teams to go. And we kind of go out there. I remember last year we had ran out of fuel last year, and this year we didn't. And I was like, let's go. A huge victory considering how many other there were a bunch of other teams that either had
about
power issues.
A third of teams don't finish endurance that start endurance.
How many? I don't know how many.
I think about a third of the teams that show up for competition, or about half, get to endurance, and about a third of those fail endurance.
And it felt like that amount for this year too.
A lot of teams that had issues that you'd see that would just try to struggle to finish it. The points benefit of completing the laps, even if they're slow, is always there. It is go until the car won't, as hard as you can. And this year we were able to get all the way through the amazing work Isaac did and Zach did, making sure our gas tank was large enough this time for Owen and Nathan, who are aggressive drivers and use a lot of gas, can go as hard as they can throughout the whole session. And we were able to finish with almost no issues all throughout endurance, just a couple of shifter things, but that was just a fine-tuning thing. But ran all the way through endurance, and we were able to fix the powertrain issue overnight. Bad coil, running on all 4 cylinders, great power, no complaints from both of the drivers for endurance.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we had a little bit of fuel left when we finished.
We had a good amount of fuel left. We were able to do about 1 to about a half of a lap extra on top of it.
So that's not too bad. A huge improvement from last year.
That's exactly what we wanted.
Yeah.
We wanted that 10% buffer, that's what that achieved.
Yeah, and a huge heartbreak to some teams. I believe South Florida and FIU and FAU, I believe, also did not finish.
I know UCF and USF were both unable to start. They both had extensive powertrain issues.
Oh, okay.
Leading up to endurance, which is always heartbreaking. USF specifically, their car was on it throughout the entire weekend with a bunch of awesome people.
Kind of on pace with Embry-Riddle, too.
Yeah, that car was out there doing great, looking great. They had worked really, really hard to have a lot of testing time with that car, and they were just kind of left at the finish line with an issue. I don't know for sure. I believe it was electrical that left them unable to compete, which is always super, super frustrating. But we know that they'll come back and do some great work this year.
Yeah, for sure. And that's not to mention there were a couple of other big incidents. I think there was one incident where I think Wichita State had crashed into the fence, very hard crash, and I think there was a YouTube stream that had caught it. Thankfully, everyone was okay, and thankfully the driver was okay.
Driver was fine.
And I kind of saw it from in the distance. I was like, still the car was still going. He was still going, and I'm like,
the car was okay.
It happened right in front of me. I was not one of the drivers or one of the people with dynamic passes sitting in the endurance line, so I was off in one of the spectator areas. They had lost the rear in braking in one specific corner where the track was very cold and not very rubbered in, and they went into one of these kind of soft pedestrian barriers, pushed it in. Some spectators helped push them back out, and they eventually got their car started back going, and they ended up finishing endurance with that car.
Wow.
After that impact. And they ran through, and it was
great resilience.
Really resilient. Have to finish. Go, go, go.
Yeah.
Don't stop until the car won't. And it was amazing. And everybody that was there, every single time that car came back by was cheering them on super enthusiastically. It was awesome to see them actually go through, do a driver change after that, and continue going and finish endurance after having a kind of big moment like that. But it looked great seeing everybody get back out there and no one get hurt.
Yeah, endurance is definitely the most spectacular part of the entire competition. It really is the grand finale.
Yeah, for sure. And then there was another team that I think lost the entire hubcap too, and I had gotten a perfect picture of. I had gotten a perfect view because at the time I know our car was either one car or 2 cars behind them.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden I just see the car go completely straight, and I see a tire, just like the wheel, just rolling along and following it. So overall, like this was a fantastic experience. Just kind of rate, what your experience would be out of a scale of 1 to 10.
Oh, 10 out of 10 every time. I mean, that was my first year, so a little bit of bias there, but arguably, like, it is one of the best competition experiences that I have ever had when it comes to actually, like, being a part of a big project and seeing it go against everybody else. So the entire week was great. It was a very tiresome week, but very, very, like, fulfilling one.
Rewarding, yeah.
Very rewarding. So I would go above that, and this year will be even better.
Comp's always amazing. Talking with companies that you would love to work with, whether that would be Haas Foundation, Haas Formula One, whether it's Tesla or any other corporation that people are interested in working at, Honda Motorsports. It's an awesome opportunity for everybody who's worked really hard throughout the year to go network, talk about what they're doing, and it's always awesome to go talk with the other teams, see what everyone else did, see people who ran into the exact same problem as you and go in a completely different direction for solving it for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And just comparing and contrasting. Competition is always a 10 out of 10.
Yeah, and with that will wrap it up with another episode of Momentum Motorsports Meeting. Alex Skigen and Isaac Montes, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you had a lot of fun. Hopefully we can have you on guest stars again. So we'll kind of keep you all updated on what other guest stars we're planning to have. I know I've got another special one sometime early next week. Stay tuned for that. I will see you guys later. Have a great day, everybody. Take care, y'all.